This is Sarah Mikesell, and today we're here with Dr. Patrick Webb. He is the Director of Swine Health Programs with the National Pork Board. Thanks for being with us today, Patrick.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about African swine fever today.
Okay.
And how concerned are you about African swine fever kind of entering the U.S.? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, there's definitely concern. So African swine fever falls into the category of a foreign animal disease such as foot and mouth or classical swine fever.
Right.
And all those diseases pose a risk to the United States for a couple different factors. One, obviously, somebody could bring those diseases in deliberately.
Right.
You don't have to be a genius to be able to make that happen. So,
Right.
that's one way. Another way that those diseases could enter the United States is coming in with passengers from other countries who are carrying meat products from countries that have ASF, trying to bring them into the United States.
Right.
Might not be doing it deliberately. They
Right.
just were visiting and they liked it, and so
Right.
so you could get virus into the country that way. And we do have, it's a regulated process, but there are states that do allow the feeding of meat containing plate waste to pigs. And so if you bring in product and it just happened to get into, into that pipeline,
Right.
you could potentially infect pigs that way. It's regulated though. They have to cook it. There's certain rules they have to follow. They have to be licensed and inspected, but it does represent a pathway that it could come in. Third pathway is a newer pathway that's been looked at, and that's feed ingredients. We get a lot of feed ingredients from China, and there has been some preliminary work done by Dr. Scott D. that has looked at, in experimental conditions, those ingredients' ability to actually take certain viruses and keep them alive during the transportation process from, say, China into the United States.
Okay.
And so in that situation, experimentally, African swine fever was used, and there were certain products, organic soybean meal for one, that could keep that virus alive. And so that's obviously a concerning pathway. So it's been identified as a pathway. Now we really got to dig into it to assess risk,
Right.
and then how do you mitigate that risk?
Mm-hmm. So Patrick, how do we monitor these pathways that African swine fever can come into the country?
So related to international travel, Customs and Border Protection and USDA's Plant Protection Quarantine work very closely on trying to mitigate that risk.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of rules and regulations for doing trade, right? And so
Right.
USDA does a nice job of making sure that the trade that we do is low risk or no risk, so that's a good thing. But you have people that are potentially bringing these products in, and so that's where you rely on Customs and Border Protection, and
Right.
they have the technology to help target in order to hit those flights or get to those flights that maybe have more passengers that are coming from areas that have African swine fever, so they can try to interdict product there. And then you've seen the cute little Beagle Brigade.
Yeah.
Once somebody gets on the ground here and they're waiting to go through customs,
Yeah.
those dogs do incredibly good work in confiscating product that otherwise would make it into the United States. If a producer were to suspect African swine fever, then there's a process. They call the state veterinarian's office, or they call the office of the area veterinarian in charge for USDA. They make a report, and then there's an official investigation. It's called foreign animal disease investigation. They send out a specially trained veterinarian, they take the samples, and they take them to the laboratory. And then the laboratory plays a very crucial role. The diagnostic capabilities of the lab, the tests that that you're using, you need them specific and you need them sensitive, because you're trying to rule in or rule out a foreign animal disease. So you've got to have good tests to do that. You got to have tests that you can trust.
What type of test would they run on that, Patrick?
There's there's all sorts of tests
Okay.
that I've seen the list of tests that they run.
Right.
But really, one of the more valuable ones that get you your results earlier are PCR. And so a lot of the laboratories that are approved to run PCR are set up, and that allows you probably a little extra time to get that allows you a little more information sooner.
Right.
As samples are going to the official laboratory to be tested there. And so the PCR tests are very good and have proved very valuable in our foreign animal disease investigations in trying to help rule out the possibility of diseases.
Well, thank you so much for all the information today, Patrick.
You're welcome.
This is Sarah Mikesell reporting.